Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.
Just let someone in. Just let someone in the Zoom. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's not.
Ken, you ready to get started?
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order.
Recording in progress.
September. The original. First item on the agenda is public comments. Anybody have public comments here or on Zoom? Seeing none, hearing none. The next item will be the consent agenda. First item are the minutes from our previous meeting, Monday, August 2nd. Motion to almost. Second. Discussion, any changes? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, second, the payroll warrant, 1003, 1005, 1006, 1008. Motion to accept all of them. Okay, I'll second. Leon seconds. Discussion on the payroll. Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And then there's the vendor warrants, 1004, 1007. Second. Okay. Discussion on the vendor warrants.
Well, I don't have a discussion on the vendor warrant, but I just want to say, since our last meeting, it's a lot of warrants in which we are here. And whether it's here to say something about so many of them, I thought we maybe one or two or one, but I went through all of them. The payroll warrants since we met in August.
Right.
And so we got 4 more since then. It's just surprising me when I saw that number. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I saw that.
5 weeks. 5 weeks compared to like.
Right. So the payroll warrants, what happened is just we didn't meet in July, so we had an overlap, and in August we only had some of them that covered when we hit our meeting. So there was the rest of August and beginning of September, because we paid our first payroll for teachers going back was in August as well after our meeting. That's why there's so many. Typically you'll see 2 payroll warrants for every meeting, but it's just the timing because of the number of weeks this one time.
Okay.
And you'll notice the vendor warrants were the normal 2. So it was just the timing from when we met in August and the carryover for when payroll hit this time.
Are we getting any closer to settlement with the insurance?
I can talk about that later. The answer right now is no, but I can do more discussion on that later. With the payroll and vendor warrants, once they're approved, as usual, I'm going to pass them around. There's 2 sets per warrant, so you should have 12 cover sheets you'll need to sign. So I just ask that if you try to make sure that your signature on all of them before you leave the end of the meeting, which is helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions on the warrants? Seeing none, all in favor of the vendor warrants?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
The cash flow, revenue, and expense treasury report were included as the drop-out. Committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? Okay. Action items. Fiscal year 23 vacated consortium agreement. So can I explain that?
Okay, so in your Dropbox and in your packet, there should be a document entitled FY23 VACTED Consortium Agreement. VACTED stands for the Vermont Association of Career and Technical Education Directors. This is something we sign every year as part of the Carl D. Perkins Act. One center or one district chooses to be the fiscal agent to run all the money through for the teacher prep program, essentially. But the boards have to sign off on that. So this is a yearly document that we do. It just happens to be hosted this year at the Orange Southwest Supervisory District. Last year it was at another tech center, I can't remember which. So it's just a formality to adopt the agreement. That's all.
Motion. I'll make a motion that we sign.
Okay, Mike made a motion that we sign this warrant.
I'll second it.
Okay, John second.
Yeah. Because we're doing things on Zoom, anytime we have some documents, it should possible to share them so that when people, if somebody's out there or when they watch Cat TV or whatever, they can see what we're talking about just for a glimpse of it. Is that possible?
Yes, that's certainly possible. We could do that.
Any other comments, questions? See none, all in favor of signing the
Aye.
Second, request for proposals for a new bus.
Okay. This is a lengthy story, but we'll try to keep it short. And Becky can chime in when wherever she feels necessary. So as you recall from our last meeting that we had talking about a bus, which was last November, I believe, around November, you approved the purchase of a sale of a brand new bus through DATCO Bus Sales. We have been informed as of approximately 2 weeks ago that bus has still not been put into production. The frame has not even been built. And unfortunately, our transportation coordinator has grounded one of our buses that we use on a daily basis. It's no longer safe to be on the road. So we are down a bus that we use every day. And the new bus that we ordered has not been built. So there's no guaranteed delivery date. It was supposed to be here around Christmas or Thanksgiving. At this point, who knows when it would be. And on top of that, the company which we purchased it from also wants to add an additional cost of a little over $5,000 on top of what the bill already was. And so we don't have that kind of time to wait and have a bus down for another year and not even knowing where it's going to be. So what we'd like to do is put out 2 different RFPs for buses. And Becky, do you want to talk about those RFPs that you and I came up with?
Yeah, so based on the information from Matt Kern, the DATCO, which is who we initially purchased the bus from, Mike and I started talking because now we're even short an additional bus. And so we decided we would put RFPs out for 2 different needs. One is going to be stated a new kind of demo already built bus. So if there's somebody that has a few buses sitting on a lot and they're already built, so we don't have to have the wait time of building a bus. And the second one is going to be a used bus, but only, and this is going to be a miracle if we find one, 2020 or newer with less than 30,000 miles. So we're hoping as we've been searching around a little bit, there's a couple of places. One is called Creative Bus Sales that states they have buses on their lot. Whether they really do and whether they fit what we're looking for, I don't know. But what we want to do, because of the urgency of not getting the bus we needed to begin with and being down another bus, we wanted to try to reach out to other vendors again, put out requests for bids, and try 2-pronged, either new, already built, or used, hoping we get some quick return. We have a really quick turnaround date to expect the bids to come back to us and open them. What we're doing that for is, I'm also concerned because the rep from DATCO not only indicated at least a $5,000 increase, he was unsure if that was still going to be the number, which made me fearful that it was going to be even greater. And my response back, which I have not heard back from him, was you know, we signed an agreement based on the number that was quoted and thought it was locked in, but until that bus goes in manufacturing, I'm not sure it is locked. And therefore, if they feel they can increase our price, I feel that if we needed to, we could step back from that, especially since something has not been built yet. So we're hoping to try to at least locate one bus to get one back into our fleet because we need it and go from there. So that's why we brought this to the board, and I'll let Mike continue a little bit. And then if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer it.
Is there any fee, Rebecca, if we don't, because we're backing out of that?
There was no deposit left. We did not have to leave any deposit, so there was no fee. Again, because of the quote, I made sure that there wasn't a cost to us if we backed out of that. And I'm not saying we're going to yet, because we may not find anything else, and we may be dependent on that, but no, there's no cost or penalty for us to step back.
Does Dufour, the local company, have any relations with any of the production companies at all?
I'm not sure, but Dufour, the Hinsdale office is one of the places we're going to reach out to see if they have any excess buses that they decided they want to turn around and sell. And if it comes down to it, we may need to come back with an option of leasing for a period of time. We're hoping to just get one in our fleet, and if that doesn't work, maybe that's the next option we have to go with because we are down the buses and we need them. But we're going to try this avenue first, and Dufour is one of the places on my list to reach out just in case they have extras. We're still looking for a type A, smaller bus, enough to fit a class size of our students, which we consider them adult size when it's bodies in a seat. But we're not necessarily looking for a long bus. We're looking for kind of a short, mid-size, what they call a type A bus. So we're not sure whether we'll find.
Yeah, and go ahead. Sorry.
I just didn't see those. Were those RFPs in on the Dropbox? So
They were not, because traditionally we don't bring the RFPs actually to you until we have bids and we are selecting one, and we show you what we've asked for and what the bids come in. I have copies if you want me to pass them around, but we traditionally don't usually put them in the Dropbox prior to soliciting. We just get your okay to do it.
It's just when you're asking for action items to do it, I want whether I need to see something to be able to.
The
action item besides, yes, it's okay to do that, but if you add something, I would look at it, that's all.
Right, so we wanted to bring this to your attention that we didn't have the bus as anticipated, and we did not put the RFPs in the board packet. Like Becky said, is we normally don't do that unless we have bids. Just sort of advising you where we're at, and also part of why it's under action is one of the things that we'd like to request of the board under this is the 2 RFPs that Becky talked about. One is for a new / demo bus, so may have a few thousand miles on it. We have done a little bit of homework. We do see buses in New England that seem to be available on lots. There's not a lot of them, but there seem to be a few in the New Hampshire and Connecticut area that seems to meet very closely to our needs from what we've said. But what we'd like to do is ask the board to authorize us to spend up to the amount that we would on other new bus if in fact we get a bid in on a bus, because these turnaround times are very tight. I mean, our next board meeting is not for another month, and we could have a bid come in a week or so, and or a bus available that we could have, and otherwise we're going to be into end of October with this, maybe even November, and we just can't function that way with a bus down that long. So I don't know the board's feelings about that, but it's something that Becky and I talked about. Not to exceed the amount we've already agreed to with the other bus. And if a bus came through, we would in fact cancel the order with DATCO immediately. And as Becky stated, there's no cancellation fee. We've not made a deposit. So there's no money lost there, just a lot of time, quite frankly.
Remind us how much that authorization was for the whole process.
Thank you, you're reading my mind. So that's exactly what I was going to say. Just to refamiliarize you with it, in the January 2022 board meeting, you approved $67,195 for that purchase of that bus. So again, it was $67,195, and that was for the new bus with the specs that match what we were looking for at that time. So that's what we're asking. Obviously, we're talking about if that was a new bus again, you know, a used bus, we wouldn't be paying the same price as a new bus, but we were hoping with the turnaround that you would allow us to basically go out and go shopping to try to get something in-house up to, but not exceed the amount you had already approved.
So where are we at with working buses right now? So we're down one, we're gonna get one. Where are we at with buses as we stand right now?
TJ, as far as number of vehicles that we have in buses?
Yeah, like operational.
So we're operational right now. And the only reason that we are with that is because early on in the school year, we don't have a lot of field trips planned. We don't have a work-based learning rotation set up yet. So there's a small grace period here in the beginning of the school year where we do have I'm going to call it an additional bus. It's not really, it's just one we're not currently using. Because what happens is we generally take our older bus and shift that to our forestry program because forestry uses the bus the most of anyone. But just by the nature of the program, they tend to be rougher on the bus as well, meaning inside with dirt and mud and things like that. And so we always kind of upcycle the oldest bus back to forestry. And so right now they're using one of our the older bus that they were intended to get, but we still have enough vehicles to operate right now with our daily runs north to Manchester and Dorset. But again, we're not doing field trips right now or work-based learning runs. So that's what's sort of saving us in the time right now. But that's not going to be really possible in another month at all. And as Becky said, we are looking at other options. If we had to rent or lease or whatnot, another bus, whether that be from Dufour or somebody else, to do that. So I hope that answers your question, TJ.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I also wonder if it does come to a time where we need this bus, we don't have it, like what does the priority look like as far as access?
Well, it would be, I mean, off the top of my head, the way it would work is that the programs would have access to their vehicles, to the vehicles first, if appropriate. And then for field trips, we could certainly, it would be cumbersome, but we could do it. We could contract out field trips, for example, with another bus company so that it wasn't utilizing one of our in-house buses. So we would make it work. It would just be a little bit different, that's all.
The other thing to note with the buses is when we do actual transportation from the sending schools here, there is a requirement with the yellow bus, so to speak. It has to have certain specifications or features in order for us to transport students, picking them up at a school and bringing them here versus our quote unquote, what we call our activity buses. And so it's important because of what the state of Vermont requires that this bus that we're looking for meet those specifications so we can use it in all aspects, not just restricted to activities. So it's a certain code we're looking for based on what the state of Vermont requires.
Anything else we can answer on the buses for you?
I'd like to make a motion.
No, go ahead.
Okay, to approve up to, I'd say $70,000, given the increasing cost of everything, instead of just $67,195, up to $70,000 for the purchase of a new bus or a new used bus.
A second then. Yeah.
What I don't understand is why we're trying to get more money than what we approved in January to spend. They're asking us to the 67, and then the motion is for more than what they're asking for. And I'm just thinking that from a board point of view, we should only be trying to provide that amount of money that the administration is asking for, that we've already agreed to spend like back in January, as opposed to throwing in additional money. If something happens, they need to come back or they need to work within that scope as opposed to that, and that's.
The reason I proposed that, asked for that is because I didn't want any lag in time, just for them to come back and ask us for another $3,000.
You know, I'm sorry, Becky mentioned it would be a $5,000 increase over what we originally were expecting to pay for it because of what you mentioned, and everything in this world was going on big time.
The only reason I agreed with Jackie because I've got 2 wrecks at my house. One accident happened in November. I'm still waiting for parts. Okay, and yes, geez, doubled and tripled. So I have to go back to the insurance company. They'll pay it, but they're just gotta. That's the game. I mean, they're just because of the atmosphere in this world today. Everybody's getting screwed. So, what it's bluntly.
Any other discussion? Okay, we're voting on Jackie's motion to approve up to $70,000. Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's now a school safety liaison.
Okay. In your Dropbox or in your paper packet, Sandy would have given you this morning a draft job description of a campus security liaison. And the little background behind this is that on our campus for the last, as long as I've been here, so at least the last 15 or 20 years, we have normally had a school resource officer that was generally a Bennington police officer who was here on duty up to 20 hours per week. And that has worked out very well. I know Meg could speak to that about how helpful.
This is Bruce. I'm headed to Burton with 5 students on board.
Not sure what that was. Let you know that as things have happened and departments don't have the personnel that they used to have. And so we are not able to get the same type of coverage that we've gotten in the past with the police department and or the sheriff's office. And
can you repeat that?
Let me mute just one second.
That's the bus channel.
That's our bus channel letting us know that they're traveling up north with a bunch of students, so that shouldn't interrupt us again. So, so through our faculty and staff have a real concern and feeling about not having the right staff on board with feeling safe and secure in the building with all the events that have been going on in our world, especially in the education world. And this is something that we've talked about internally before, about having our own security person on the Southwest Tech campus. We currently sort of share that, share those services informally, I would say, with Mount Anthony, because when it comes to safety, we are a shared campus in that respect. And so what we're proposing is to start out with is a part-time, approximately 20 hours a week, campus security liaison. And you see the various duties in the job description here, you know, such as patrolling areas on foot, providing visitors, escorts and students and staff, watches for irregularities, keeps a presence. I want to note that the first sentence in this is that these are civilian employees. They are unarmed. They're not police officers. And their primary role is with the law and authority granted by the school district to protect persons and property of the district. They also attend our safety meetings and provide additional support and flexibility both in our classrooms and in the hallway and at dismissal time and arrival times during the day. So we think that this is something that's needed. It's been asked for by the faculty and staff. Administration supports this. And a couple things, if I could just turn to Meg for a second and have her talk about also our need and what's it look like on a daily basis. You know, what does campus security do? And then to Becky, who can talk to you about the funding source of this for at least this school year.
So,
Leslie to Jeremy.
So campus security usually works one-on-one with students to help de-escalate any situations that arise, whether it's something that happened over the weekend, out in the community, or here at school. A lot of times they're useful during passing time, which is when we have the most people moving in the hallways. They're usually called to help if a student is kind of wandering the hallways, making distractions for other students in the classrooms. And, you know, I think a lot has gone on in the community, especially over the summer. And we have to keep in mind that, you know, our students are coming in with witnessing a lot in the community, or, you know, kind of bringing all of that with them. You know, we for years, we've always been able to have a Bennington police officer here at least 20 hours a week. That's not the case anymore, unfortunately. And, you know, I think just having a presence in school, you know, kids have used them as a resource in the past. We tend to develop pretty positive rapport with kids to the point where they'll seek them out. So I think it's our hope that it's another support person that can help us in management of students.
Becca, would you mind speaking about the financial aspect of it?
So at the end of 2022 school year, June 30th, we received, which is the very last day of the school year, of the fiscal year, we received a supplemental payment from the state. It was under what was known as, right here, Act 83. And it was listed as a one-time fiscal year 2022 technical education supplemental grant funding. And we received one additional payment that basically had no strings attached to help us kind of catch up from losses financially due to COVID and enrollment numbers and different factors that affected the last couple of years. And the way they put it through allowed us to bring it to this year to decide, you know, some of the best ways to use this funding. Because again, they use the term grant, but they also, and I double checked with the Department of, or the Agency of Education to verify that there weren't any particular requirements, and it allowed us to use it to the best of our ability to work with our campus and our students and our teachers to make sure, you know, it goes toward them in one aspect or another. And we felt that the safety and security of the students and the faculty and staff was certainly a priority. And with the fact that we cannot guarantee now the police department being here like they had been in the past, we felt that this was one of the priorities to use some of this funding. Because if a student doesn't feel safe, they won't come to school. If faculty do not feel safe, they'll look elsewhere for employment. We just, with things that are happening today, we just want to add some security to the fact that we hear what you're saying, and we felt this was an appropriate way to use some of the funding for this position. And so that's what we anticipate as a source for this year. And as the year goes through, we would probably be bringing it back to the finance committee and make a decision. Is it something we want to build into our budget for future years? We already have a piece in the budget that we normally pay for the Bennington Police Department to come in. Obviously, if they can't provide the services, we would have some of that funding that we would use for this position. You know, if we get a police officer once a week, and we were expecting them 5 days a week, there's going to be some funding left from that we'd be using first for this position, and then use this supplemental funding as a way to pay for the rest of it. And that wouldn't cover all the money we receive from the state. It would be just a portion of it. Question?
That would be probably somebody from the sheriff's department.
Mike, can you answer that about the sheriff's department?
Yeah, it's my understanding that they are also short-staffed, including pulling their school resource officer out of the Pownell Elementary School. It seems to be short-staffed all around, as we see in all of our jobs. So I will reach out to them again, but we're being told by every agency that we don't have enough staff to support the request.
It says that you have to have 5 years of law enforcement experience.
Well, that's in lieu of.
It's got some new requirements. I mean, it's got the requirements, but the whole thing of having another person, I'm not in favor. We have a responsibility. One of the things we're trying to do is actually take law enforcement out of the school and by having things done administrative wise and instruction. We're supposed to be monitoring the hall. We're supposed to be doing certain things. We put up all these security systems, and then we're still ready to go out and hire somebody else to do all that we're trying to put in place. That's still not going to help. The bottom line problem is when you say, well, students, who's the first persons that know and understand and see something associated with you is easy. Or it may be administrator that know the student in the hall, and then we're saying we want to take that and put it over here for somebody else. I'm in our discussion to try to find ways that we enhance understanding and trust within our staff and so forth to get this done and rams incentive to say, see some, say some, or do something, as opposed to saying, I'm going to put another person in the building. We're talking about next year, we're going to come back and we're going to tell the taxpayers to say, well, we got a carrot, and now we're going to back and you're going to a whole apple. So we need to be doing something else. We got mounting. We got part of the security with INFO as a whole unit with mounting, and we got that part. But now we're trying to do something totally separate from over here when we have that part too.
So, being a former teacher, I can tell you that yes, you monitor the halls and it's happening, and so. But in the meantime, kids went into your classroom and it'll help breaks loose sometimes. So you can't be in two positions at the same time as a teacher. So doing this in the interim, as long as these funds last, and I'm not saying, you know, we should do it maybe year by year, as Leon stated, you know, what happens when the funds run out. So maybe we should make a proposal and say we hire this until the funds run out, or for 1 year this year, and then re-up it next year when we see what funds we have that year. I'm not in favor either of adding more personnel, but if we have the money this year to do that 1 year, I'd like to see it happen. And particularly to ease the strain on teachers right now. Teachers have this double whammy of watching a hall and watching their classroom at the same time, and it's very, very difficult. And even if it's just per year, I'd like to see it happen.
See that Asher and Dane both have their hands up.
Okay. I agree with Leon as far as adding staff and everything. But if we were to just fund the 1 year, I suggest looking at there's retired state troopers, retired, that would be the way I would go on that aspect. But we do have to, I realize how hard teachers work, I really do. That's part of the job, keep an eye on your students. And if there is a problem, then you tell somebody. I mean, you can get more help. There is help out there, but, and I just don't know how you, and who knows what the future is bringing here? I mean, we're struggling now, as the taxpayers are and everything, and we just got to be more inventive, I guess, to say, and go from there.
I'm just going to follow up, and I'm saying to Jackie, one person is not going to take the place of every instructional teacher that we have allowing students to come into their class. They just can't get to all these places. And so what I'm saying here is that if we need the teachers to be educated or some kind of incentive to have them work with students to be able to say either they got a problem or not have a problem. And that's when you pass something on to the administration, the system that we have in place and say, I got something here that I think you need to be doing, as opposed to putting a person out here and thinking that person is going to do everything. And I see that as a deterrent for individuals that are firsthand contact with students to not do things that they need to be understanding. Yes, education has changed. It ain't just close the door and I'm going to teach everything. There's a lot of other stuff out there that you need to know about the students that you're serving. It may be that to be able to get people to understand that, throw some of this money and say, well, look, you teach these classes, we're going to give some incentives for you to spend some time maybe in the cafeteria with students or at a football game, a basketball game, a soccer game or something, to be able to get to know your students so they can understand outside the classroom their students and develop some trust and know how to manage these things, as opposed to separating things back out that I'm going to get law enforcement over here to do everything and you guys over here. We'll never fix the problem because you won't get to the root cause.
Yeah. As a former teacher and also as a student here for a while, I think that one of the things that I've tried to let teachers know is they call somebody else all the time, then they're giving away any control or any control or power that they have, because they're not either not willing or don't feel capable of stepping in. Now, I'm not saying that they should, I'm sure there were situations in which they would know right away, I'm not ready, so I'll call someone immediately. But the point being that oftentimes if there's a problem, the teacher can't handle it. It can take just a few minutes to talk to the student or something like that, just to see. And I know it takes away from instruction design. Same token, if there's some other kind of instruction in the classroom, that takes away from the student. So it certainly doesn't hurt to ask the teachers to give it a shot before they, before they give up their power.
Yeah.
My turn.
Go ahead.
So, regardless of when this person would start, will we need to write up a new policy to address this type of personnel, or do we have? Does anybody know if we have an existing policy that would oversee this person being hired and coming onto the team?
We have existing policies and administrative regulations around student discipline and procedural things. So that's all. That would be all set.
My only ask, Mike, would be for that policy to be added, I guess, to our October agenda for the policy committee meeting, just so that way we can be sure that we're covered and good to go. Thank you.
Just,
Is it my turn? Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to lend my voice in and say that I really appreciate a lot of Leon's comments about maybe a more community-oriented approach to safety and addressing safety as a whole. I would say, as far as you know, investments in safety go, I'm fully supportive of that. And if there are funds available, you know, I think that there's probably a lot of community members here in Bennington that would fully support us investing in safety on campus. I think that looking at the you know, job description as it is right now, I think I have some concerns about just sort of outlining the specific trainings that this individual would have. I think we mentioned like de-escalation, but I'm not, you know, I didn't really see in that job description that whatever individual we hire will be totally equipped to handle any number of situations. So I think just maybe getting some more reassurance about whether it's ongoing education or, you know, I think one of the descriptions was to detain somebody until police arrived. And so we just want to make sure that, you know, we had all of the systems in place. But I am, you know, interested in open-minded along the lines that Leon was mentioning, as far as if there's funds available for, you know, trainings in general, if that could be something that's useful. At the same time, I want to appreciate the fact that a request for extra personnel is coming from staff and faculty.
Right, thank you. And if I could add, you know, I certainly respect everyone's opinion and appreciate the feedback on this. You know, yes, this would be adding another person, but the goal would not to be to shift any kind of duties away from anybody else. We work as a collaborative team at Southwest Tech, both in our administration and when it comes to our security management. We work very closely with Mount Anthony High School and their team as well. And I don't want to get into the specifics on live TV, but the number of incidents that have occurred and that continue to occur on campus have certainly escalated in the last year and even the start of the school year. And you know, folks are nervous, and you know, there's only so much time to be had to go around and do some of these things, and it may say detain a student until police arrive. I mean, part of the proposal is that, remember, we've always had for many years a school resource officer on campus for approximately 20 hours a week. That, you know, that's what it boiled down to. We don't have that anymore. We may have them once in a while. Those officers that were here, you know, no one saw them as I don't think anyone saw them as there for a bad reason. I mean, they spent time in classes and built relationships with the kids, just like Meg had talked about. And so we don't envision this person, if this position is approved, to be any different. That's why it doesn't say school security officer. It is purposely called a liaison, because we want them to have relationships with students and teachers, and the administration and the community. So, you know, we're bringing this forward as a request, not a request, after hearing the faculty's concern, and also Meg and I recognizing the increase in prevalence of the need for additional type of security work within the building. Those are just the facts around it. You know, I understand the different theories about whether we should have, you know, uniformed officers or ununiformed officers, armed or unarmed folks in buildings, et cetera, et cetera. And I know that everyone has a different opinion about that. I do respect that, I do. I want to be clear that this job is not to replace somebody or to shift duties away from anybody else. It is to be a supplement what we're already doing, because we see the uptick in the number of incidents. I'll leave it at that. I don't know, Maggie, you want to add anything else to it or not? That's fine, but just bring it to you as the board.
I
share Leon's concerns, and you know, my perception is that school districts have invested more and more money in law enforcement on campus, and there are notable examples where that's absolutely failed to accomplish what it was supposed to accomplish. And I wonder, A, whether this is, you know, this one-time grant, whether this is the best use of those funds about school safety. The other question is whether this board should be approaching any select board about issues of adequate policing. And I think that's part of the town issue. They are located in the town. At the same time, I'm inclined not to go for this.
I just want to, it's great to hear all the opinions. I think it's something to take seriously, considering that people on the ground who are here every day have concerns. And we come in for a board meeting, we get to see that I'm more concerned. Serious, whatever that.
Rebecca, is there any COVID money? I'm just probably not ahead of that.
No, there is not any COVID money, and any of the latest COVID funds we've never qualified for as the tech center. The main sending schools are the ones that receive the funding, and because they all have a home school, we didn't qualify for any of those. We are just a piece of their education and not their home school.
Okay.
When I was on a BSD board several years ago, we hired a resource officer, but the main purpose then was for community relations, where the young people in the schools who had negative experience with police officers could see that these police officers were nice people, and they shouldn't be afraid of approaching a police officer because their lives have been shattered because maybe a parent was arrested and they saw something that was really terrible. And now we're saying it's more for security, but you know, things change. I remember when I was at Greylock, the board there voted they had an SRO, but no guns allowed. The police officer could not bring a weapon into the building. We had to be there. As a matter of fact, it was a young girl that was there, and she had to do it. So I mean, things have been changing. I guess it wasn't just PR. Now it's safety. And, you know, we've seen around the United States in the last few years what has happened in schools. Terrible things have happened, and I question whether they were. If you look in Texas, there, where all the police were outside, while the person was inside doing something terrible. It's a tough decision.
I'd like to make a motion to hire a campus security liaison.
Oh, you already have second.
We do.
No. Oh, okay.
For fiscal year 2022 to fiscal year 2023. 1 year.
Hold on a second.
Okay, discussion.
Well, my discussion is still going on for the motion, and I have to say that in being part of Mount Hampton policy, and so forth, we have been moving more and more with the policies and things to try to look out for students. This is a student environment. I'm going to tell you that. The thing Chuck mentioned and some other folks, students are allowed, we have a responsibility to try to look out for students in their adolescent environment to make sure they grow without having to be subject to law enforcement. And so we've been, the Board of Education can make policies that sends to administrators that they do certain things, that we set up cameras. We do all these things we're trying to do to students, as opposed to have armed or dressed or uniformed police in school. Kids don't hear because so what? You're police. They tell the teacher that. The teacher, I'm gonna get that police in here on you. But so what? So all we're doing is de-escalating what it is that we're trying to do. Teach kids the right thing in the environment with the age, as opposed to being subject to what they're going to get when they graduate and get out of school, and there's no other place to go but besides a law enforcement person, because they didn't learn it when they were in school. And all we're doing is just exposing them early to what they shouldn't be getting, as opposed to trying to find ways to teach them in the schools how to behave, how to manage things, teach the trust and reliability with teachers and instructions. We're giving that away. That's all. That's it.
You know, yeah, I'm hearing both sides, and I'm leaning more towards, you know, being outside for sure. My concern is with teachers as well, but we also have a law enforcement program too. Are we utilizing them? I don't think the students should supervise themselves, but just kind of maybe have there's something we can do in house to encourage students to reach out to their own peers when they see something going on. I don't think another officer, unarmed person here, anything, we're going to a classroom, the teacher's having a hard time de-escalating the situation. You know, I said the kid's gonna act out anyway, whether the police officer's there or not. So I have difficulties with this.
I think I just like
I see where we're coming from too, and safety is my big priority as well. I have a son in high school, you know what I mean? I don't take that for granted either, so I'll leave it at that now.
And I want to reiterate that I'm not, advocating that we have necessarily more police on campus. I'm bringing a problem to the board that we don't have the coverage that we used to have, which made people feel generally safe and more secure. They're not available as much as they used to be, and that's no one's fault. It's just the workforce. And so, I hear what everyone's saying, and if it's something that the board doesn't wish to move forward, then we don't move forward with it. The amount of incidents that occur on campus continue to escalate every time. And, and Meg's, I know I can see Meg right there, she could tell you the same thing. And I think also something to point out is that our attached high school, Mount Anthony, has a minimum of a security management team of 3 people, on top of administration that it may be assigned to help in that. We don't have that, and we share a very large part of the student body, quite frankly. And so sometimes it's untenable of what's occurring, and not every day. I don't want to paint a picture of that, school's embroiled every minute of the day, because that's not what we're talking about. But if the board feels strongly that the safety and security of our students, as the way we described it, needs to be done some different way, then we'll come up with a different way.
I've listened to everybody too, and in deference to the people who expressed the opposing opinion from me, I'd like to express the fact that, yes, I'm a teacher. Yes, I know how to somehow de-escalate things. But if I'm not my size, my height, if I'm 5'10", if I'm 5'4" and weigh 100 pounds, and I see one of our high school kids who is 6'3" and weighs 180 to 210, I'm intimidated. So I don't think that person would stop anything. Some teachers, as they age, they get this superpower, which just gives a look, like their mothers. But we have a lot of young teachers, and they don't have the same types of experiences that maybe John had in his heyday, or I had. And there is a whole essence of respect back in the 60s and 70s and 80s that is no longer here. They don't have. Some students have no respect for police. They have no respect for their parents. and just are doing what they want to do. And it's a very few, it's not everybody, and it could be just a handful. But I guarantee that if we hire this person, they don't have to sweep the whole school. They will know the 5 to 10 people who they have to keep an eye on. And that's just how it goes. And above all, we have our students back for a full year, hopefully. They've just come out of COVID isolations, and they're trying to, maneuver into different situations. And somehow, those feelings will get upset, and things happen. And that's why I strongly advocate that we hire this person.
I agree with Jackie, and I know there are a lot of students don't come Mount Anthony who have kind of this RSF, as Michael said, but we also have a lot of sending schools who already have some type of security set up. I think we owe that if there are concerns that we should have at least someone who is friendly and approachable that can help assist teachers, because there's a lot on the plate one they have in the past. So.
With all due respect, the notion that the resource officer will know 5 or 10 students who really rely on profile, but it's one of the dynamics of are going to feel intimidated themselves.
I was going to say the same thing. We have to be careful. I understand. There's targeting and tracking and all these other things that the school system is trying to make sure we don't do. And describing certain type of individuals to be problematic is a problem for a school district to be suing things down that avenue, because that is what they're trying to, when it comes to equity and involvement of all these kind of things and inclusive, they are getting us to go away from those kind of things. And so we can go on forever along this line, but I know one thing that I might mention something. I wanted to know the number and the type of problems that we're having in the career. Maybe you can bring that back as an assignment for the next time we meet. If those things are increases, that we need to understand what it is that he's doing in terms of this job that's creating and allowing a lot of things to happen, either in the cafeteria or on the stairways or whatever. But we need to be aware of that, because you're still not, well, I'm gonna not.
Yeah, last thing I said, it really kind of scared me listening to what you said. I got a son that's, 6'3", 6'4", and had a chip on shoulder time, but he ain't hurt anybody. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it made me a little nervous. I'll leave it at that. So, made me nervous.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know that necessarily that there's ever a time that a teenager, almost whoever they are, doesn't have a bad day someplace and acts out. And so to say that this, any, some of the worst things I saw in my experience were two young women, both of them were about 5'2" and about 100 pounds. So, it's not just size or anything else. But Mike, we're not talking about it essentially a supplementary thing, but something that we already have, and it's just, and we're looking at a different, or already had, and we're looking at just a different source of provision without any cost and so forth. I don't know that necessarily we want to do away with something we already have.
Right.
I understand that it's mostly because somebody else can't guarantee that, and I see that, but by the same token, I don't, you know, if there's a way of making the faculty comfortable, and also, you know, if we could, you know, just sort of know without knowing who the students are, what kinds of issues about this time, so that we have a better, you know, a better sense as we go along of what is happening and what the issues are. You know, that certainly would be helpful in making a decision. Thanks for dealing with it already. You know, maybe she can just let us know kind of what's happening. So far this year.
I mean, I'm more than happy that we can certainly report out on redacted data, you know, at the next board meeting to kind of give you an idea what situations look like. You know, that'll have to be very redacted. There'll be general categories of things that occur. I'm happy to report that out to the board and the community. There's, you know, nothing to hide there. You know, and if I feel like the board's very divided on this, and that's okay. I've heard a lot of strong points on both sides today. And I think TJ said it, I do understand both sides of the coin. I really do. It's just difficult when folks are asking to feel safer and have another resource available. And that's why we brought it forward to you. If you wish to table it until next month with more information, that's okay. We'll bring you back more information. If you choose to move on with it and not vote on it, I understand that as well. And we'll come back with something different.
Okay. It's not a new service. It's just it's what we had. We're just guaranteeing that we have it for that period.
Essentially, John, yes.
Okay, I just want to be certain, you know, because I think if you're adding a person and that's their own, you know, that's a different ballgame altogether. It's the same service that we've had up until now. We're just using a different funding source or whatever. That I can see that, because it's not, you know, and if it helps teachers and the students in terms of feeling safe, then I think that makes sense. I just think that there are some other things we can do in terms of, you know, whatever skills we think our other teachers might need and so forth to learn to de-escalate or to talk about, you know, classroom control and those kinds of things. That's a different story. And I do worry sometimes if we just fail. If somebody can just bail by picking up the phone and saying, I need so much, because then they don't get into the doing the thing part of it.
Okay, Fran, and then we'll call the question. I think everybody had good comments pro and con. Go ahead.
I know all over the country, depending on what news station or something, a lot of schools that can't afford law enforcement are using parent volunteers. I don't know if that's a viable solution for what we have. I mean, there's retirees, there's a lot. Maybe be able to do that, and I'll just throw that out there, because there are other districts all over the country that are doing that. Again, I don't think it is, but I think one year at middle school, they had parents come in because they had some problems up there of some sort. I think, Ken Payne was the principal up there then. So, but maybe, okay, maybe it's not, but I'm going to throw that out.
And I actually think that's an interesting idea, Fran. I have seen that, both not only in schools, also in hospitals and et cetera, where places are short-handed. So I don't think it's a crazy idea at all. I think it's something that we could certainly worth looking into. I don't know what we'd find, but you know, I'm happy to look into it. You know, whatever the pleasure of the board is. I mean, I think you said we had some good discussion today, Ken, and I think I've heard from everybody pros and cons and what they feel. So you know, it's up to the chair, but I say call a vote, and you know, I'm happy to look into other things as well if that makes folks feel better, and also happy to bring you some information at our October 17th meeting about the safety and security systems that we have and the types of incidents that we deal with, if that's helpful to the board.
We call the question, please. The question on the floor is to hire the school safety aide, minimum 20 hours to replace the Okay, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, they got the hand.
That fails. You brought up in the next meeting, the incidents that like reports is very serious.
So just a clarifying point, Ken, does the board want that type of information at the next meeting?
Yeah. Brought that up, and if it's okay, I'm saying when you say something like that, that has a big impact on teachers, students, and parents. We have to be able to address that. And I'm looking at all of the policies, I'm just looking at that the state has sent to us to make sure that we institute certain things within the classroom and with teachers to be able to manage all of these things we're talking about here. So we got to make sure we are measuring, know what those things, how they're being implemented to fix these problems if we got them coming up.
I have a question. According to Robert's rules, if we have people that are online, everyone must say their name and vote. You can't count hands. Yeah, you can see it, but they can't see it. I mean, we can't see what we can see here. So anyway, that's Robert's rules. If you're having a video and physical meeting, you have to ask for a roll call vote.
We do that now, or?
Yes.
Okay. Roll call vote. Those in favor? Aye. Becky?
Jackie?
Mike? Josh? Aye. Okay, those against?
Aye, Leon.
Aye, Sharon.
Yeah.
Speak up on this.
Speak up, Dane, and Andrew.
Yes, nay.
Nay as well.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. And can I just ask one more clarifying question to the board? I hear that you want to hear information, and that's not a problem whatsoever. Do you want me to bring back something different to you for a proposal, or drop this altogether and figure out something that doesn't cost the district money?
I don't think it's about the money. I just want like a little bit of everything. I would say just, bring us what the issues are so we kind of get an overview. And I'm not speaking for everybody, I'm speaking for personal. And let's go from there. Do we have a truant officer too that works with us, or is that just the high school that has a truant officer?
Just the high school.
I would appreciate some idea on kind of what Dane was saying, the types of trainings that are available. I don't know if y'all saw, but I had my hand up before. I had another question I wanted to ask, but it's neither here nor there. We already voted. A better idea on what the trainings would look like and if they can be added after a vote, for instance, was really where I was going with that.
Yeah, Ash, I'm happy to provide you a list of the training that we've done for teachers and that we already have scheduled for teachers, including CPI and de-escalation and things like that. So I'm happy to bring that to the board on October 17th.
Yeah, as well as for an officer or security guard, if we were to hire one, specifically what trainings they would undergo and if there's room before or after a vote to add trainings if need be.
It's my understanding that we are a person down in terms of security, is that correct? So if an incident happens between now and our next meeting, are we liable because we didn't provide adequate? I'm just asking. It's something to put in the mix since we're a person down.
I think if we were required to have it and voted not to, well, then we would probably be liable. superintendent's report.
Okay, I'll bring back to you next month the information that will hopefully be helpful in better understanding our campus.
Well, we didn't answer his question. I believe they started to a different job description or just the incident report. Well, like you want to see the report first and then create something from that? That's what Mike was asking. Right. But if you want to change anything in this, it's asking for next month.
I don't, and want to change that. What I said is there is a lot of things that the schools, the Vermont Board of Education in terms of policies and documents that are coming forward, the high school and the center that address how we should be managing a whole bunch of these things. We're not starting to even cover any of those. So if we knew what it was that he was talking about that are issues, there's maybe some already that he talked about what the responsibility, how we're supposed to get to the root cause by way of instructional changes and all these other kind of things. So that's why I'm saying, let's hear what it is that we think we got. And at the same time, everybody needs to be looking at all these policies and procedures that the board is supposed to be responsible for that controls the education system. And wholly responsible for these things. So we need to be doing that before we try to make a decision of what to do.
Just what other question is, like, is this serious enough as far as the students go that we should be scheduling something before the 17th of October?
Right. Right. I mean, something that we could certainly do, is we could certainly call an education committee together. Before the next meeting to have maybe some more in-depth discussion about this. If that's something that TJ as the chair of the education committee thinks would be appropriate, something that we could certainly do. And it may allow for some deeper discussion and have a better understanding from all parties about what we're looking for.
I was making sure you had the direction you wanted us to go with this.
Thank you, Mike.
I didn't see anything wrong with that with the job description that was here, but at all. I think you don't have to redo that. That's not a decision, but I do think that
how could there's the policies that
there's a sense by you, Meg, like that it's an extraordinarily serious issue that it's not good to put it off for a month. If we can deal with it, we have to have a emergency meeting, go ahead and do it. And look at it again and let's do that.
Yeah, we'll Meg and I will regroup and talk about this and bring something back to you. Okay. All right. So my superintendent's report. So I'd like to let you know we had a good kickoff to the school year. It started 2 weeks ago. We had 3 full professional learning days right up front with our teachers. Excuse me. We're continuing our SEL training, which is social emotional learning within the classroom. Whitney Adams from 7 Mindsets was here and spent a whole entire day with our staff talking about the 7 Mindsets. And that is required by the AOE for us to be involved in social emotional learning. I think maybe Leon might have referenced that earlier, something similar. And so we are providing additional training for our staff. And that is a program that we started to implement last year and that we're fully implementing this year with what's called Mindful Mondays and curriculum around social emotional topics. We also this year, we are changing the way our advisory committees meet. Now that COVID is still around. I don't want to pretend it's not because it is, but we are able to open and function as normal as possible as we had in the last 3 years, which is very nice. Excuse me. Our advisory committees, we need to work on them as a school. We have some very strong advisory committees and we have some that could be a little bit stronger. And so something that we tried 3 years ago that people really liked was we had an all advisory day. So what we did was on one of the half student days, the second half was professional learning. We hosted an all advisory luncheon here at the school for all program advisory committees to meet. And it served 2 purposes. One, people were able to meet each other from the advisory committees, which was a huge benefit, and was also at lunchtime where most people were able to come. We kept everything to an hour, and there's a lot of great feedback about that event. And so but legally, we have to have 2 advisory committee meetings per program each year. And so what we're planning this year is in October, at the end of October, we'll have our first all advisory luncheon for all of our programs. We're going to warn the meetings, and we're all going to have to use the same template, et cetera, from the Agency of Education. And then we'll have our follow-up in May. We'll also do an all advisory day at the end of May. So that sort of bookends the school year, if you will. The federal law says we have to have 2 meetings a year. It doesn't define what a year is, so we're using the school year as our year. And we think that'll be very good for the center. And teachers seem to be very happy about a day we've picked and telling people in advance about it, which I think is great. I'm going to give you a full rundown of program enrollment at the next meeting, which is October 17th, I believe, if you vote on that later on. Most of our programs are full. When I say full, that means between 16 and 21 students in a program or class, because those are regulated by the state of Vermont. We can't have more than 16 in some programs and more than 21 in others. That's based on state statute. The majority of those first-year programs are full. The majority of our second-year programs have very healthy enrollment in them, which is great. Additionally, all of our pre-tech foundation classes or intro classes or short blocks, whatever version you want to call them, depends on what document you're looking at. Every single one of our programs offers one of those, and those are also full. No room. So we're really at a big capacity this year with numbers. I'm looking forward to the actual enrollment and what that looks like. Remember, we don't do our snapshot until October 15th, so the report I have for you in October should be fairly accurate with an FTE count, as well as the number of students actually in seats. Like I say, it's nice to have everybody back. It's nice to see students in the hallways, generally without masks on, though we understand mask wearing is still, people wear them, and that's totally fine. And we have not had any problems with that here at our school, and I know some folks worried about that when it came to bullying and harassment and things like that, and I can tell you we've not seen any of that whatsoever. People are very respectful about personal choices, and I think that we helped encourage that, and we continue to see that. And I hope that's a global statement, not just a Southwest Tech statement, but so far so good. Also, I'm looking forward to reporting to the full board and the community on our work arrangements and how that is working with the school and the staff. I think you'll be very impressed with the technology and things that we have in place in which we've used and found new ways to use them in order to communicate most effectively during the school day and beyond. So that's the end of my report. I'll certainly take questions from folks if they have it. If not, thank you very much.
Just as a new board member of the board, I've been surprised that the superintendent's report is not provided in writing before the board. And I'm wondering if that's, we just listened to a lot of information, and as it's absorbed it that well, verbally. Is there a reason it's not in writing ahead of time?
I've never been asked to be done in writing ahead of time. If that's something the board wants, I'm happy to do that, but often the report changes right up until the day the board meets. But I'm happy to provide a written report if that's what the entire board would prefer, if that's what you want.
Well, I'll answer that for Mike. You got minutes for every meeting that are recorded for every member superintendent, and all of the other boards that I know of, they're not, the superintendents don't normally, principals don't have a set agenda. They have a slot and say a superintendent report, principal report, or something else. That gets recorded, whatever they say in the minutes, and then those minutes come back in the next package for you to say, wait a minute, we didn't say that, or you didn't say this. So we can address that. That's the way we've been managing. Okay, so yeah, and I was just trying to get everybody to know that's what it is for the chair. Mike mentioned some things that programs. The goal that we, and it just sit on both. We have tried all of the students to get in technical education. That is something that I have been just working diligently and hard on. And when you tell me, when we say that most are full, it brought a question is, how are we letting those sending schools and other areas know when there are openings? Because I'm hearing students say, we want to get into that center. We're still trying, and we're asking the close ones, Mount Anthony and other places. I'm saying, get those kids in this center. I'm personally saying that. And so, and they're saying they're trying to get them all over here. So if we ain't busting at the seams, we need to let other districts know or other schools know that we got openings in something. And then education-wise, if we need to look at how to expand our program, because the state, when we went to the Board of Education, you're going to notice in the recent and in the coming years that everybody is pushing technical education in Vermont. We just left a school board meeting, annual school board meeting, and that was a question, a comment, trying to get more people in the technical education. And we want to do everything we can to fill every class and look at expanding and talk about the educational opportunities for those students. So that's, I just wanted to point out, I wanted to know what they were, how we were letting other schools know we weren't full in certain classes and they can get their students in them. And if full education-wise, we should talk about what it is that we need to do, hire new teachers, expand this, do something, hold classes online.
Yep.
That's all.
To answer Leon's question directly about, we have a guidance coordinator who is a liaison for all of the schools, no matter what sending school that is, from whether it be Burn Burton, Arlington, Hoosick Falls, homeschool students, et cetera. And so she, her role, keeps those schools apprised of enrollment. And one of the things that we do have some waiting lists for some programs, and which is good. And what I hear Leon saying, we've talked about before, is about also expanding programming. And we want to do that. We certainly do. With this being the first year back from all the restrictions of COVID, hiring has been difficult at best. I'll just say that. And finding folks to teach is difficult. It is, and it doesn't say that we can't do it. It's just that it's difficult. We're also out of space here at least this physical location. We don't have any more space to be had for any of our programs. We're maxed out in capacity. So I know that we've talked in the past about expanding outside of the four walls of the Southwest Tech Center itself. And I know that's been a big goal of the board for many years, and we've been working on that, and I'm not ruling that out for the future whatsoever. As you know, a lot of things got put on pause the last 2.5 years or so. And so I am looking forward to exploring more avenues for more students to enroll in our center, no matter what program that may be. So I want to thank Leon for that. We often talk about downsizing programs, but there's also a side to upsizing programs where possible. So thank you.
I want to thank everybody for the great discussion. I've been on board for a lot. I've been part of a great discussion, pros and cons. Everybody made their statements and they backed them up with their facts and feelings. That really important. I want to thank the board for all the opinions and input. The only thing I have is that, again, the State Vermont School Board Association meeting in Lake Maury is going to be on Thursday, October 22nd, and Friday, October 23rd. If anybody's interested, you can go to the VSBA site online. You can see our treasurer there. She can set up the payments that they're billed after the event occurs. If they had to pay after. So if you're interested, by the way, it's really worthwhile. Stay over one night. They bring in a lot of good speakers and good deals. So take advantage. Yeah.
one of the things for the chair is that the report on the annual school board meeting was just held. And I was on it, Chuck was on it, and Jackie was on it. And we were looking for more people because this is electronically done and is at night. It was at night at 6 o'clock to 6:30 or along that line. But we had a great time. The first part of the meeting, we had resolutions in terms of what changes we want to see from the school board to go to legislation. So we had about 7, I think, of those to discuss coming from other school districts. And that's why something did come up about tech schools. But then the other part of that, we had questions at the annual school board meeting. They broke us up into breakout rooms. They mixed the group of people up, all this online, and then we discussed about 7 questions as to what it is we need to do, how we can tackle certain types of issues happening in terms of the school system and report out on. So I reported out on my group with a whole bunch of people, and I won't go over that, but I'm saying these things are available for school board members, annual school board members, and then monthly there is things coming from the school board in terms of training. We had Robert rules that we had. We got other stuff of what board instructs, board chair training. There's a lot of online training, and they hold most of it at noon between 12 and 1. You can sit down, eat, and look at our webinar, and you don't have to ask a question, just learn. And if you want to put some in the chat, send it in to them, you'll get your question answered. And I just wanted to make sure that that was covered under the chair's report, because we need to make sure we be effective as a board in terms of knowing what it is that's required of us and how to get these things done.
Meeting day. Do we need to approve the 17th?
No.
So October meeting would normally fall on a holiday this year. So the question that the board will need to decide is whether to hold the meeting the first Monday of the month or the third Monday of the month. And in the past, we've always asked, as far as the business office is concerned, to be the third Monday. But I think in this one, Mike also has other reasons for it being the third Monday if possible. Because again, the second Monday of the month is a holiday this year. So the board just needs to decide to set the date for the October meeting. Either, I don't have.
I was
3rd or 17th, and 17th. I'm asking for the 17th.
Motion for the next meeting to be October 17th.
I'll second that.
All in favor of 17? Aye.
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 Aye. Okay. 17th it is. It's 5 weeks, it'll be more.
Okay, and before the board adjourns, just a note for those who are watching. We had a policy meeting scheduled for 10:45. We are still going to hold that policy meeting, at least try to have a quorum on that. It is the same meeting link as we're currently on. However, I'm going to end this meeting and pause the recording and reopen the meeting for the policy meeting, which will take place in my office, in the main office.
So
Second, third, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.